Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing a short review and initial impressions on the Baur Harbor Freight abrasive chop saw. We just picked this up for pretty much Christmas sale at $120 with a $20 off pretty much coupon. We're going to be using it to chop some aluminum. We're going to throw aluminum on the chop saw. It's a big no-no for most fabricators, but if you're on a budget and you're trying to fabricate a little bit, we're going to see how well does it do and can you get away with it running on aluminum. So let's talk a little bit about it. And we're going to try to cut some aluminum. I know aluminum is not the easiest metal to cut, these non-ferrous materials, and grinding discs aren't your best option, but it is one of the cheapest options. So we're gonna check how well it can cut that pipe. We'll check how the cleanup is gonna have to be after, even if it's gonna cut. I'm not sure. We got a lot of projects coming your way with custom stuff. Well, not too many projects, but I'm doing something and I need this to work, and I'm gonna see how well this works and if I'll be able to do it. Overall, very simple design. This is the step down compared to their Hercules chop saw at Harbor Freight that runs probably about $170 or $80, but it does come with a decent backing plate here, and you could actually adjust the angle of it if you're cutting the pipe at an angle. It does have a pretty good strap over here that you can tighten down the pipe. Now the problem here with cutting aluminum specifically are these abrasive pads, and the problem is these abrasive pads make a really nasty cut and they create a lot of heat in aluminum. This is really not meant to cut aluminum and other non-ferrous materials. It is good for steel and possibly stainless steel, but it doesn't give you the cleanest cut. I put some candle wax on the board. Second cut, just about the same, to be honest. Maybe a hair better. I already cut this pipe and I cleaned up the welds quite a bit. This is how they look like, and I threw this on a belt sander, cleaned it up a little bit, and used some files. But still, at the end of the day, this requires much more work to clean up if you're going to be tacking things together. So I'm really, first impressions, the saw did pretty good cutting through it, but there's a lot of stories I hear that cutting aluminum with this is actually going to create a lot of problems for the disc, as the disc is getting embedded aluminum on there, and then potentially that can lead to the disc blowing out, and there's other horror stories online. So ideally, do you want to do this? No. Can you do this and get away with it with a lot of cleanup time? Yes. Do you want to spend a lot of time cleaning up, making a fast cut, but spending a ton cleaning up? I don't know. I'd rather have a slower cut, wait longer on it, get a cleaner cut, and then get ready just to deburr the edges here quickly and start welding. So at $120, this has its place in the fabrication shop, maybe with like other steels. But me, as a beginning fabricator, just trying to do things easily, this is pretty much a problem. So if you plan on doing a lot of pie cuts, one, the disc has a little play to it when it's spinning quickly, so you're not getting a perfectly straight cut, and you are taking quite a bit of material left, quite a bit of material out from the aluminum, because this is a 3/32 width blade, and they only go bigger from here, from my understanding. And so yeah, you're wasting a lot of material compared if you used a, let's say, a bandsaw, which will cut much finer and thinner cuts that will be much cleaner with less heat. This is the blade that I am using, and one thing I did two cuts. One cut was just bolted the blade right up and cut, and the second one I actually put candle wax all over the disc. Some people were saying throwing some candle wax, beeswax, any kind of wax. Some people say soap. Throw it on there, it will glide through the aluminum much better, cut through it, and without loading is what they call it. When that aluminum sticks into the abrasive disc, it's called loading, and loading is bad. So did I notice the difference between the wax compared to the cut without the wax? I did not. They both came out looking pretty terrible.
Old school rule is don't cut non-ferrous metal with an abrasive saw. To start with, it's more about the disc than the saw itself. The saw, with the proper blade, could easily cut aluminum. In fact, with this current blade, I'm sure that the disc, not blade, would grind through aluminum. This disc is specifically designed for ferrous metals, steel and stainless, as most abrasive discs are. When you use this type of abrasive disc, the aluminum can melt and clog the abrasive pores, also on grinders and grinding wheels. Basically, it fills up the tooth, loads the grain. There is a high likelihood for binding and basically ruins the disc. Here's my experience. First, typical, aluminum is soft enough to be cut with any woodworking blade with relative ease. Especially a carbide-tipped blade. A fine-tooth blade works best. I have used abrasive discs to cut aluminum. There is a lot of binding and discs wear out really fast. I have had it bind and break the abrasive disc, which is an impressive and extremely dangerous event. Out of convenience, I do cut a lot of aluminum with the diamond blade on my tile saw and grinder. Even with these tools I go very slow while cutting, as I've had them bind and kick back pretty severely too. It's quite a surprise when the piece of aluminum you are holding and concentrating on cutting with the grinder disappears from your hand and embeds itself in the drywall across the room. There are actual abrasive discs that fit this saw that are specifically designed for non-ferrous metals. Additionally, more carbide saw blades specifically designed for cutting non-ferrous metal are available for aluminum as well. I hope this was a good enough explanation. Smile. Thanks again for watching.
Alright, real quick before I end the video, a few things I just wanted to touch base and conclude this short, sweet review. Is this Baur chop saw good for stuff? Absolutely. For the price, it's very similar in construction to all the name brands, the Makita, the Milwaukee, even the Hercules from Harbor Freights. Very similar construction, all get the job done. It's a very simple construction, so I personally don't think the other brands are that much better. Some of the motors might vary in speed, but that's just about it. Again, with aluminum, if you're doing intercooler piping or anything of that nature, if you're cutting aluminum and welding it back together, this kind of cut with the abrasive saw and the abrasive blade is not a clean cut, and I do not suggest it. For those occasions, you're better off using a evolution saw that has a metal blade, a dedicated metal blade for these kind of purposes. Those are highly recommended and efficient, and they're a cold cut saw, so the cut is clean, cool to the touch, and it doesn't melt these non-ferrous materials. Going back to the Baur chop saw, it's good and affordable, and it will get you started, and that's the most important thing. If you're trying to fabricate some things or cut some things around the house, yes, 100% recommended. It will do a great job on exhaust steels. You know, stainless steels might be hard, but it will chop through it eventually. I do suggest it, but take that with a grain of salt. It's really going to have to comb down to your purpose, your project, in order to make sure you're getting an efficient cut. Now, I have heard people putting in those diamond cut blades onto these chop saws. However, you want to kind of avoid that, because one thing you notice, a regular miter saw has a certain RPM that it cuts at, which is pretty high. Going into these abrasive chop saws, the RPMs of these motors are slower, right? They're in like the 4,000 RPM range. However, but the dedicated chop saws that cut metal, like the Evolution again, their RPMs are like 1,300. So some people do say you can put a metal saw on one of the miters or one of these abrasive chop saws and use it, but just be very careful, because those RPMs are much different and you might get kickback. I personally tried to cut that aluminum pipe, intercooler pipe, with a miter saw with a wood blade, and that pipe went flying so fast I didn't even know where it went. So definitely, even though some people do suggest it, I didn't have good experience doing that. So again, in conclusion, I've been searching around Instagram. I've been asking people what do they use when I see their builds and their projects, and a lot of people, the top two things people use are bandsaws, or again, the dedicated metal chop saws. Thank you.